Exactly. Hey, people coming.
Welcome, everyone.
Hello, all. Good afternoon. Happy nearly Friday. Just let everyone come in. Just to let you sort of everyone get settled in, let the technology start working before we get started. In the meantime, just introduce yourselves using the chat. Perhaps say where you're joining us from today, and if you're from you're helping out a non-profit or a charity, let us know who you're helping out today, who you're working for. So yeah, we'll give it a few more moments, and then I'll just do some intros, things like that, and then we'll be passing over to Dawn for the session today. Nice to see so many of you so far this morning, nice and prompt. It's really good. Yeah, I'll give it another moment and then we'll get started. Have a few moments, a few seconds or so. Great. I see so many prompt people, which is great. Oh, you've got your wrong. You've got, you've got your WhatsApp up sharing there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to close all my applications because
Okay.
it's saying that I've got too many things open. Sorry.
Okay, I'll let you start closing those in the background. In the meantime, I'll get into the intro, everyone. So, yeah, again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Hope you're all having a great week. I know I am. And like I said, it's nearly Friday as well. So, in a world where getting likes, comments, and shares can seem like the ultimate goal, we often forget that engagement is just the beginning. The real challenge is transforming that online approval into real world outcomes. Now, joining me today is Dawn Newton, who will show you how to convert engagement into action. And before I hand over to Dawn, I just want to share a few house rules and pointers for today's session as well. So the session is currently being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand within a week's time. And the slides and other resources will also be made available to you later via email. Closed captions are available. Now, during the webinar, please ask lots of questions using the Q&A bar specifically. So that's for me to address Dawn at the end of the presentation. You can actually vote questions you like just to ensure that they do get answered. If you ask the question in the chat rather than the Q&A drop down, then your question will most likely be missed. So do ensure you're using the Q&A bar to ask your questions. If you encounter any sound or image issues, please let me know in the chat and I'll do my very best to get the session back to normal as soon as I can. And finally, during the presentation in the chat and at the end of the session, you'll be prompted to leave feedback. So if you could kindly take a few moments to leave us feedback regarding today's session, it'd be great, really be greatly appreciated, not only by ourselves, but also Dawn as well. Feedback allows us to learn more about the content we provide from a different opinion, and more importantly, helps us make improvements to our content. So without further ado, hello, Dawn, over to you.
Thank you so much, Joel. Welcome, everyone. Hope you are all well and really delighted to be doing the session today. It's been a long time since I've done training and I've missed it so much. In case anybody hasn't found it, the Q&A thing is on my system on the more three dots along the bottom on the panel for Zoom. So worth clicking that and having that sort of ready for when you're ready to put a question in. So today we're going to be talking about converting likes into action on social media. I'm basically a freelancer that supports charities with their marketing and comms. I've been doing this work for a really long time. I'm one of the very strange people that studied this at university, even though I'm so old that it was before the internet time. So when I was at university, we had really dodgy dial-up. So I've been trained in the old-fashioned arts, which have now moved on somewhat, but a lot of the fundamentals are the same. I I also started an event called the Charity Meetup, which is a networking and skill sharing event, which began in 2015 in London. And then I started a group which ran in London for quite a long time and started one in Buckinghamshire, which is where I live. And currently there's one running in Birmingham, and they're meeting up mostly in person and some online. I'm hoping to try and do another online and an in-person in London for the London group in January. But one of the biggest tips I would give would be to join the Third Sector Comms and PR Network, which is linked at the bottom of this slide, and you'll all get the slides after, I think it's a week after this session. It's a really amazing group where you can go in and ask questions and get support from other people who are just like you, trying to, figure all this stuff out. So if there was something I would recommend, that would be the thing to do, because it's going to give you support on an ongoing basis. And obviously Charity Digital have amazing resources, and their content and newsletters and everything they share is obviously brilliant and really worth keeping an eye on and making sure you're up to date. So today we're going to talk about engaging content creation, building relationships through interaction, strategic use of social proof and incentives. Because we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to try and cram a fair bit into the session today. So I hope that it will be useful to you. But if I'm talking too fast or there are issues, please flag that. So before we start, there's no such thing as a stupid question. If you have a question, please put it into the Q&A bar in the Zoom system as we go along, or when it's the section for questions. I'm a big quotes person, so there are quite a few quotes in here. So I really recommend. I love Socrates. I think he'd be my, if you could ever meet anybody alive or dead, he'd be the person I would ask to meet. And I think there's this thought that we can force people to do things, get people to do things. And I think realistically, we can't. The only person we can change is ourselves. And the only thing we can do is spark a thought in their mind that might shift something for them. But it's only if we relate to them and help them emote that is possible. Creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes and having fun. Having worked in the charity sector for a long time, a lot of the words that are on that slide aren't necessarily things that are natural for us in the charity sector, because we tend to be very, very cautious. But I think if you're not enjoying it and you're not trying a few new things, it might not mean, it's going to mean you're going to have difficulties working out what is going to be helpful to you. So I always think about an iterative approach: idea, action, review. So say you decide, from today I'm recommending we do more posts that are questions, and you want to experiment with that, and so you weave in, let's say, 3 questions over the next 3 weeks and then review them. That means your stats are going to tell you a story. If you're always doing the same thing, your stats will always show the same thing, and you can't get a sense really of what is helping and what isn't. So engaging content creation. I think one of the things we struggle with is we're trying to convey so much, and a lot of the work we do is so complex, and to actually simplify a lot of the stories and the work that we're doing is incredibly difficult. And I think that work is often invisible, especially to colleagues who might not work in comms, that it's really powerful and important to make time to do that simplification exercise, to think about what is that one key message that you really want people to understand, and how could you weave that into as much of your post as you possibly can. I think now with people's attention spans, like before internet days, they used to say that a lot of people's attention span was 20 minutes. And then I remember doing some training, and when you're looking at things on social media, it's often you have like 9 seconds. So if you imagine you only have 9 seconds, it's quite hard to convey complex things in that time. You want to pique their interest so they want to learn more. You also have to bear in mind that the average reading level in the UK is 8 years old, and that's a mix of different educational levels, learning disabilities, English as additional language. And I think some of us, if we really took a cold, hard look at some of our posts and asked if we thought an 8-year-old could understand that, I think might not be the case. And we use a lot of specialist language a lot in our sector as well. So it's just trying really hard to be a critique your own stuff and really look at it and say, is that really simple to understand? Could I help somebody else get their head around it in an easier way? One of the things we have to shift away from is thinking about what we want. We want them to come to our events. We want them to know about this. We want them to, let's say, sign our petition. We want them to give money to us. We want them to do this. This is this broadcast mentality, which is how comms used to be before the internet. And I think we have to shift towards this more creating a community, creating connection, and giving people a real reason to follow us. And I think if we build relationships and add value and provide things that people actually really want, then I think it's going to really help us when we then do the asks, when there are things we do need. It's like a relationship you would build with a human in the real world. You wouldn't, meet somebody and say, oh, can you drive me to Leeds because I've got to go see my friend? You don't ask big things. It has to build gradually, and you have to have that relationship and trust in order to do those things. So I'd really recommend us all after today just trying to do an exercise where we're trying to think about writing some things that could elicit a different emotion in our audiences. And if that emotion and that reaction could be, obviously a lot of our work's very hard hitting and very serious, but I also think a lot of social media people go on social media for entertainment and to be happy and we can give so much positivity because we can be a source of positive news, which, let's face it, in the modern world there is no shortage of a need for that. It's dark times. So I think if we could try to think about ways that we could have our feeds be enjoyable and our content provide value as well as everything else that we want to do, when we then have asks, we're going to be much more likely to actually have somebody go, okay, yeah, I'll do that for you. We had a talk from the lady that ran the This Girl Can campaign, Kate Dale, at the charity meetup, and it was really fascinating because she talked about how one of the main things that she would recommend is to work from insight. So a lot of the work that they did to get the This Girl Can campaign, which is now 10 years old, can't believe it, I remember when it came out, it just blew me away, was insight. So they were deeply asking and talking to women, listening to the barriers, listening to the problems, listening to why they weren't getting active, listening to how they were talking about it, and asking them how they wanted to be talked to and the actual language. And a lot of what they found in the insight was this sense of kind of like shame. There was an element of shame around exercising and feeling embarrassed because we might have wobbly bits or might not be that great. And so a lot of the campaigns are showing real people who aren't perfect models and they're talking in this way that's trying to include everyone and be this kind of like a coach and encouraging people to do this action, which in their case is to get more physically active. Another thing I think is really important is to like have more variety, to have engaging content. I think we have to have more variety, and I think, let's say for example your charity in some way tackles like a loneliness element. You could obviously talk about loneliness, but you could also flip that and talk about belonging and community and the ways in which your charity help with that, like whether it's befriending or groups or online forums or whatever it is. Because I think people are much more likely to be searching for like happiness or friendship or belonging than they are probably for loneliness, if that makes sense, and more seeking that kind of constructive stuff. It's more popular. So for the Psychosynthesis Trust, we did a mind map. We did it just scrappy on paper. It doesn't need to be, this is in PowerPoint, it doesn't need to be done fancy. It really doesn't matter the way you do it. But it's really just looking at your charity and thinking about what are the key things we do? How does that relate to other things? How could that relate to our audiences? What different angles could we come at this from? Rather than this very linear way we often approach it, which is we have 3 different services and then we just talk about those ad nauseum. And I think it's working different angles. So like today is World Mental Health Day. And I think sometimes that restriction can be really powerful for content, because you can be like, oh, how could we talk about that in our own context? And I think, you know, it can help us with a lens. So yeah. Charity that I'm supporting at the moment, we've identified that the carers that they work with, unpaid carers, that they work with, they're feeling lonely and they're feeling like they're the only one going through this, and they're feeling like they want recognition and they need creative outlets and hobbies and things to do for themselves because their whole life is wrapped around other people. And the lady I'm working with, Holly, came up with this idea to do a poetry competition. And so she opened it up through email to the people who are registered with them, their service. And they have been inundated with poems. And it's been such an amazing creative outlet. And so many of them are so emotive and they really cause a lot of people to shed a tear. And they had ones from young carers, parent carers, all different groups. And we've been sharing them on social media, and we've had such an amazing response of other carers. Some carers have even in the comments written an own poem back to the poem that they saw. And I think it's just quite simple. It hasn't, I mean, it is work. It obviously takes work, but it's something a bit different that we're doing that I think is really powerful. I don't know if you've ever seen the Refuge reversible poems, but they have these amazing poems that are about domestic abuse, and when you read them forward, there's one called Mistletoe. They seem like a nice Christmas poem, but if you read them from the bottom up, it's about a domestic abuse situation. It's really powerful and very emotional. So I think art and creativity is a really great thing to lean into, because I think it can help people relate to you and respond to you in new ways and spark thoughts and feelings and emotions and make people feel less alone. And for me, it almost goes into the realm where the content's actually forming part of the service, because if one of the issues the carers have is that they're lonely, the poem could help them, because it might make them feel like, well, actually I'm not alone, there's other people who feel just like I do, or I've not looked at it like that, or whatever that might be. Next section is build relationships through interaction. So I don't know, depends on your geek level, but the algorithms these days, which is the kind of dark art science where with Facebook it used to be that the feed would be chronological order. So you would log into Facebook and you would see the most recent posts. I loved those days. They were such wonderful days, but they're gone forever, sadly. And now they are based on a mixture of different things, a lot of it motivated through monetization. They want to do adverts and they want to sell more through the posts, and they want companies, and unfortunately charities, we're lumped in with companies, to pay for that content to be seen by any number of people. And a way to kind of hack the algorithm is to validate your content. So if your content is provoking a lot of questions, likes, comments, shares, that then tells Facebook that's a good quality piece of content, and they're going to serve that out to more people. And so obviously building relationships for interaction is fundamentally important to us anyway, but it's also going to help us reach more people and get more of everything, which I think's a no-brainer, really. So I alluded to this earlier, thinking about questions, and I know for us it can be really scary because it's like, well, what if somebody responds negatively to the question? And that is possible, and you've got to weigh up your stuff. But I think there's some more simple things that you could do that might not be as contentious. So something I've been doing is, for a client, they've got 4 Christmas card designs, and I put them all up and just ask people to vote which one they like the most. It's pretty innocuous and quite a quick thing that they can just say 1, 2, 3, or 4 of the designs they like. Another thing we've experimented with is asking people what kind of content they want, what things they want to learn more about, what will be helpful to them. Another thing could be like, you've got 2 drafts for like a flyer or the new cover image for your charity page, asking people to vote on which design they like, that kind of stuff. But my ideal would be more asking them questions that are going to be a bit more emotive. So let's say for World Mental Health Day, the question might be, what do you do to, help improve your mental health or protect your mental health, or whatever that might be, rather than just posting the generic graphic of the mental health day. And that's what a lot of us do, but it's like, to me, that's a missed opportunity, because there's still a little bit of taboo about mental health. It's way better than it was ever before, but I think we could really do something more interesting if we think about it a little bit. I think we survey our people, audiences, beneficiaries, whatever name you call them, clients, a lot, but we don't often ask them about our brand or our social media, and I really think that's a valuable thing to try and do, or perhaps weave into other things. So if you're doing a focus group anyway, trying to see if there could be a couple of questions added in there, because I do think the more insight we have into what people want, the more we can then respond to that, and that's going to be powerful, because it's evidence to show, well, our people want us to talk more about, let's say, the financial crisis, and that they need more help around the finances, and the charity might be fearful of that discussion because it can be a lot of feelings and stress. But if that's what they need, to me, that means we really should do it. It's part of our duty to them. But I liked the fact that these guys did it as a question, like looking for Day's good deed. It's more playful, it's more interesting. So yeah, there's different ways that you can use questions either in the post, but also thinking about how you could ask people questions. Obviously, with a lot of this stuff where we're going to provoke questions, hopefully, we also then need to be mindful that somebody needs to respond to every single person, which I realise is a bit scary. But again, the algorithm will be looking for that your page is responsive, that you're not just liking the comments, that you're saying thank you to them, or you're asking another question. And I think even if somebody's having a tough time, if your response could be, give us a call on our helpline, we can help you. That's a way, it's an act of kindness, and that reflects a lot on the brand, and that builds that trust that people have, that you are not shying away from the tough topics and the discussions. Another way that you can get insight if you can't survey or ask audiences is using AI now. So with the carers, I've been doing some research on AI, trying to understand what are the big frustrations that their clients have, what are their desires and what are their fears. So understanding what they want, what they're afraid of. And then from that, you could ask the AI to like create polls or questions or themed content. You could, I think something we're going to try and do is like theme days. So, this top one about lack of time for a personal life, I think we've identified that hobbies and self-care are a big thing. So we're going to have one of the days where we feature different kinds of hobbies and particularly like accessible ones so that it gives people ideas and inspiration for things that they could do without much resource or time. So yeah, AI can be a really interesting tool to help you, I think. I've put the prompt I used, but you could make the prompt anything you wanted. You could use it to, you know, I mean, really just it could be used for so many things rather than that straight like creating content. I think if you put a lot more into the AI and help it understand, like, for example, all these frustrations and then say to it, what do you think are the top content ideas that we should be using, and then taking that and running with that yourself. Strategic use of social proof and incentives. So social proof's a funny one. It's the sort of thing, I call it like the TripAdvisor generation, where we used to just go on holiday and hope for the best, but now we can research the hotel and all the local restaurants, all the local attractions, and we trust more what the other people say, their reviews of those organizations, than we would ever trust what that brand says. And so I think it's really important to bear that in mind. And that's where using social proof on social media is really important. Don't know if you guys have ever come across Beth Cantor, but she's got some amazing stuff. She's written several books, and she's got quite a bit online as well that you can access for free. And she talks about how people are more likely to donate to a charity if they see others in their network supporting it. Social proof provides a validation that inspires action. And I know she says donate here, but it's kind of applicable to really anything. So if that's a petition, like, oh, we've got, 5,000 people have filled in our petition. Will you take the jump today and help us reach our goal of 10,000 or whatever it might be? So this is just an example of a piece of artwork that I made in Canva for my client, Psychosensitive Trust. So they provide training in a particular type of psychotherapy. It's like a school of understanding. It's a model that a gentleman called Asaglioli created. And so we created some artwork. The picture's not of the lady that wrote it because her identity needed to be protected, so we've just pulled a picture. I think that one's from Unsplash, but Canva itself has some great pictures in it. And I think just kind of using more of like people having good experiences with you that then can encourage others to, take that leap to work with you, trust you, sign up, register, or whatever you want them to do. It helps build on that. When I was at Petite Miracles, they did a thing called Humans of Petite, where they ran a project. They actually worked with a team of volunteers. I think it was from a corporate to make the project a reality. They like made the campaign plan and came up with the ideas and the framework, and then we created this template in Canva and then put the pictures in and pulled a quote from each of the people. It just really helps to bring the work to life and make those people that you're supporting like the heroes. And I think that again is like more celebratory and uplifting. And I think it's hard because not everybody wants to be featured. And like, I wouldn't really say either of these ladies were that keen to be featured, but I think when we explained that might help somebody else who might be really scared, and that it would really mean a lot to us as a really small charity, they agreed and they did it, and it really made a big difference to them, and to us. And I think they felt good about the outcome. And I think it turned out really well, and we got a really good response for it. This is an oldie but a goodie. It's a film by Dementia UK, about early onset dementia, and in this case, an Admiral nurse, which is the lady sat on the sofa. Kelly is the lady in the grey top, and Ian is the gentleman on the left, and he's the person that has the early onset of dementia. He doesn't remember getting married. He doesn't remember really anything at all, and it's quite sad, but they have a young son, and the video tells this whole story in such a short period of time, and it's so emotive, and every time I watch it I cry. So I'm not going to play it, but I would really recommend watching it because it's like a masterclass. And I think this went viral on social, and the reason it went viral was the vulnerability that Kelly showed, talking about how the Admiral nurse was amazing because it was something for her to help her, and everything else had been for Ian. But if you imagine the person you love disappearing in front of your eyes, it's very painful. But she was so amazing in that video. So it's a really good example of storytelling. And I really don't think it would be that hard to do. You wouldn't have to do it. They've got some beautiful shots. It's been made by Magneto Films, who I know, Gabby, who does that. But you could do it in a simple way, or you could just get some quotes from some of the people you work with. But video is so powerful, and I really think we really need to try and, it's how people want to consume content. And if they say a picture says 1,000 words, how many words does a video say? My goodness. I mean, this video stayed with me. It's old, but it's amazing. I'll never forget Kelly and Ian. Sadly, Ian's already passed, but it is, there's a legacy for them to have helped that charity, and hopefully helped a lot of other people who have gone through the same thing. A good friend of mine, an absolute legend in my circles, is Rachel Collinson, and she uses a success criteria. So she says that the thing needs to be simple, ideally unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and salient, and have stories. So I think it's quite a good sum up of how we can really try to look at our content as it is now and ask the question if that is the case, or even if we could nudge it that like 1 or 2 posts a month could be these things, move forward somehow in some small way. And Rachel has a book called The Giving Code, in which she talks a little bit about this, but she also has an online program that you can do. And she spoke at the same charity meetup as Kate Dale, the lady from This Girl Can, and she did an amazing talk about thinking about different types of supporters and the kind of things that they need. And she themed it around Lord of the Rings. It's amazing. So yeah, maybe give me a shout if you wanted to see that, because I think I've got a video and slides of both those talks if that's of interest. So my top tips would be create emotional, engaging content. It's not about us, it's about them. It's that old saying of like, I know it's country, but ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. In my case, it would be ask not what your audience can do for you, but what you can do for your audience. You need to be serving them, and they're the ones that need to be thought of all the time, not ourselves, and how what we do could provide value and be something they look forward to seeing and they welcome and they want to see more of, and they would recommend to their friends. Use clear, compelling calls to action. Now, that seems like it's really easy. It's really not. Like, we often want to cram so many different things in. Also, with the algorithm now, if it's like, DM for the link or all these different phrases, the algorithm filters a lot of that stuff, so it can be quite difficult because, if you I think it's important to have some content that isn't call to action, and then have some of those in that are like your hard hitting things, and think about those as like your big campaigns and your hero content where you really want them to then take an action. But I think simplifying it and asking them to do one thing and having a variety of those things. So I don't know. It's Carers' Rights Day coming up, for example. So in that case, it might be we want people to share those posts because it's about lobbying, for more support for carers than is currently here. And then other times you might want them to click a link to book on a training or register with your service or donate, but just not always having the same calls to action and trying to make it easy for people and simple. And again, a lot of that is about crafting the actual posts to be simple enough for them to glance at it and get a sense of what it is and then what they need to do. And then leveraging social proof, using that kind of herd mentality that people want to join in and feel part of something. I really think that the feeling of wanting to feel like you belong and you're part of a community is seriously lacking at the moment in the world, and I think we could offer that as charities. And I don't see many charities really like leveraging that on social. The user-generated content I think is a really interesting one. So the poems, they're effectively user-generated content because they were written by carers rather than by us as the charity. And I think that can be really, really powerful and really, really help people. So reflecting on today, I want to try and challenge you. What's a change you might want to make? Could just be one, could be a couple. I really want you to write something down because life is so crazy and I've done so many training sessions, both running and participating, and I think it's so easy to just go back to business as usual and end up firefighting and doing all the same stuff. So it's one of those things, let's say, putting on the agenda of one of your team meetings ways that we could use more questions in our content. Is it working with your service delivery team to get better feedback loop to understand more of what they're wanting from us in terms of social media content? Is that doing something like the poetry competition where it's fun and exciting? And I think for me, I would have loved to have run that on the social pages, but they were a bit too fearful to do that. So can be done in lots of different ways. We did photo competition at an infrastructure charity I worked at, and it was amazing because we always wanted more photos, and we got inundated, and we used those photos for like 3 years after, and it was brilliant. We got prizes donated by local companies, and it was just an amazing thing. I think people want to be kind of activists for us. They want to help us, but we need to give them more mechanisms to do that. If you have questions, put them in that QA tab. At the moment, I have one, so I'd really love some more. Like if there's a specific area you want me to expand on, we're kind of closing now. So I wanted to make sure I left plenty of time for the questions because everybody's going to be really wanting different things. Like one charity is going to want, I don't know, more of a donations, another charity want more clients, or another charity might need volunteers. What things are you struggling with? What questions do you have, and how could I help you really? So yeah, please put questions in. Don't be afraid. If you want to do it anonymous, just put anonymous and we won't have to say your name if you don't want to put like your name. So please, and then I'm gonna just have this quote before we stop for the Q&A. Maya Angelou, couldn't love her more. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people never forget how you made them feel. And I think again, it's reflecting on what does your social media make people feel, and how could you shift that to something more positive, something that could be stuff that they could like recommend to their mates and share on to other people, share into groups, etc. So yeah, so we're going to do Q&A, please, if that's okay, guys.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Firstly, just want to say thank you and well done because of how you've had to condense so much down into a course like that.
I have so much I could say on every one of the topics. I could talk for like a day on it, so I'm trying really hard.
You've done extremely well on that, and you may or may not have seen we've already received some great feedback so far on that. So thank you. One question we did receive at the beginning you may have missed. You mentioned a Facebook group at the very beginning. Could we get that maybe put in the chat just so that
No
people can
problem.
start visiting that when you get a mo? In
Yeah,
terms,
I will try.
all right.
My computer's playing. I'll try.
Well, if not, we will always obviously we'll share all the resources later, like we always do anyway. In the meantime, well, just while you're doing that, we'll sort of push on a bit anyway. You've
Yeah.
probably seen this already. So hi, I'm this is from Lisa. So I'm using ChatGPT to my thorough delight. For those who may not know how great it is, please could Dawn explain AI clearly to help people who may fear it, not embrace it, to help their workloads, human resources. It's fab. Just before I go over to you, Dawn, we actually do have our own article on a tech review on ChatGPT, which I'll post in a moment. But yeah, Dawn, over to you, over your own experience with ChatGPT. I know it's something that you do tend to use.
I mean, I use it every day. And because I work from home and I can feel quite isolated, I'm also using the voice now, which is really cool. So I can like talk to it and say what I want and like basically collaborate with it like a human. And then it talks back to me and then it also has it in the text format. And so I do that using my phone. So I have the app on my phone and then I have the app on my I've just put the group in the chat, by the way.
Thank you.
Um, so, gosh, there's so much I could say about it. I think it's a great tool. What you put into it, you'll get out of it. So you need to think about effectively, it's like a child where it doesn't really know a lot. So you've got to feed it with useful prompts to specific to your situation. And it's getting a lot better at that more sophisticated work. So one of the things I use that's really simple that I think anybody could use it for is I'm pushing a lot of my clients to do interviews with either their staff members. Cannot tell you how important the staff members thing is because people want to understand how the charity works. They want to see the human face behind it. I know staff never want to be interviewed, but again, if they understand what's at stake and how important it is and how much engagement we get from it, it's really important. So I'll take that interview, all the text of it, pop that into ChatGPT and just say, summarize this. So that then gives me like the excerpt that I put at the top of the article on the website. And then I say, create like a tweet, 300 character social media post in UK English about the interview, and it'll pull out like a really nice little quote, or it even puts like emojis in, and it just gives you inspiration that you can then obviously tweak. You're going to make it your own and make it even better, but it is really helpful. I think if you have a day where you're not sure about what to do, it can be a great thing for idea generation. You could put a post in that you don't like and you're like, make this more upbeat or positive, or make this more hard hitting and impactful. You can really use it for so many things. I don't know if that's helpful. Do you think that's a sufficient response to that one, Joel?
I think so. We're in a world where everyone's talking about AI. You've done well to again your expertise in condensing lots of information down into you're certainly showing off your skills today with that. So yeah, no, I agree. And obviously ChatGPT is one of many generative AIs out there now. I find with any software is that I don't think you need to be I don't believe too much in brand loyalty all the time.
No.
Uh, because of the name. Just try things that are out there. Like
Yeah.
so ChatGPT's out there free. There's Copilot with Bing, which is a different
Isn't it
style.
Gemini now as well as a new one? I
Yeah,
don't know. There's
Gemini,
so many.
Rev as well. There are so many out there. So just try them all. They all have their own sort of different style, different voices.
I know with Bing it does visuals as well. It can like, and Canva is amazing. It has a lot of bulk creation tools for like both text and images. So you can like create like loads of cool stuff and save loads of time using that. With Canva, you can make images have a bigger background, like expand, and you can like remove things out of images. It's so cool, the AI in Canva. I'd really recommend playing with that too. Sorry, Joel.
No, 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 not at all. Obviously, Canva is very popular around these parts. Obviously, Adobe Express is coming up and running as well, which could be coming alongside that soon. It's still very new. I know there's adverts on TV for it at least anyway. On to the next one, anonymous one. So, how do you convert from social media? We have found our interactions are high, but converting to donate or take the action is low.
I think it's that thing I was talking about that relationship building. So if somebody's commenting on something that you're doing, are you responding to them and asking them another question? Are you trying to deepen that relationship? I think that's really important. I It depends on the cause and the situation and stuff. Obviously the world as well, like we're in a cost of living crisis still. I know most people don't really talk about it anymore, but I just think it's really hard to make ends meet. So trying to get people to donate is just harder than absolutely ever. So I think that means your content in a way has to be harder hitting than ever, and like to maybe have some vulnerability to say if we can't, meet this target by May, we might have to close down this project or maybe even the charity. And because I've seen a lot of charities go under recently over the past period, like the Small Charities Coalition. I was so sad. I didn't know they were in trouble, and I think if they'd have let us know they're in trouble a little bit earlier, people would have tried to rally more. And I think a lot of charities just want to always look good and professional and corporate and stuff. And I think sometimes it's perhaps about having more vulnerability and honesty in there. Depends on the individual situation a lot of the time, but I do think the donation side's really hard. I'm not like a fundraising expert, so I don't want to profess to be. But again, I would lean into there's a fundraising chat group on Facebook, which is similar to the Third Sector Comms and PR one, and it is brilliant because it's jam-packed with people just who are just like you having the same exact struggles. And I would be tempted to post into that group, and I'm sure you'd have a really fruitful conversation because people could talk about some of the things they've tried. And then also you see you're not alone and you have that camaraderie. And it is really tough. It's just really, really tough out there.
Absolutely, it is, and it's interesting you say about being more open and honest about a charity scenario rather than there could be that guarded opinion where perhaps a charity doesn't want to come across as maybe needy or something like that.
Vulnerable, yeah. I relate.
Tough one. It's a tough
But
one.
I think in order to get people to do things, we've got to be a bit more vulnerable, I think. So yeah, every cause is so different and they're going to be in different situations.
Absolutely. Okay. Questions firing in now, so I'll be able to
Yeah.
stop. So this is from Jess. Do you have any suggestions for simple steps to take to gather client stories slash testimonials? It's so important, which I agree with, by the way, but also really difficult.
Oh my God, this is such a thing close to my heart. So important, so hard. I have so many thoughts. I remember distinctly a case study from Anthony Nolan, and they talked a lot about how they moved from the normal charity page where they'd talk about thanking this corporate donor and doing this and that, which they knew their supporters didn't really want to see, but the charity were basically forcing the comms team to do because that's what happens with life. And they moved to a storytelling model where they talked and championed. And in their case, they championed the hero is the donor. So the person that donates I think it's bone marrow. I'm not very good with the technological things of health, but they make that person the champion. So that model saw, I think it was a something like 300% increase in engagement by like being more pure on the storytelling and the testimonials and stuff. And the way they did that was they did a lot offline. They weaved it into everything. So when somebody even registered, they already brought up the fact that they really needed them to share their story and that could be done in a lots of different ways and could be done anonymously. But if it could be done with the person and photos in real life and their name, it really helps because then other people who are like that person relate to it and that helps get more donors. I think weave it into like existing systems. So if you have a registration form, get that and
Yeah, have we got a technical issue here? Yeah, just had the same. We may have lost Dawn. Yeah, she just disappeared. Let's see if she could wait for her to come back on. I know she is in the middle of the way of that, so hopefully she'll be back on shortly. Just it's the world we live in, eh? Tech issues for sure. Not sure about the rest of you, but yeah, testimonies and things like that are absolutely valuable. And I don't want to step any toes with Dawn, but we at Charity Digital find testimonies really, really useful. I guess it relates back to what Dawn was speaking to before about social proofing, which is something I've really learned about today. It kind of sounds like it falls under that roof where we live in a world of relying on feedback to validate an area's authenticity or brilliance. With testimonials and testimonies can really be powerful for that. And you perhaps when you work with other people or other charities, you can give them powerful testimonials, look after each other. We've certainly been able to develop that with other organizations. We've been extremely lucky for that. So I don't want to take up too much time for that. And like I say, it's not my specialty subject, but we'll wait a few more moments just to allow Dawn to get back online for the moments. But in the meantime, please leave feedback if you can as well. It's really greatly appreciated. I know some of you have been really, really kind with your feedback so far. There's brilliant, brilliant information shared by Dawn today. I'm sorry I haven't got through to all the questions for Dawn, but like I said, there's slides and scripts, and I'm sure Dawn will be taking some of this away afterwards as well. And hopefully you can reconnect with her directly. Oh, here we go.
are
Hi,
we back?
Dawn. We are back.
So sorry.
It's all right. The world of tech. This is it, eh?
Right, where were we? So we're talking about testimonials. The other thing I would
Exactly.
say is create more things. So, like I was saying about the staff interviews, have a featured client of the month and then work with your colleagues to make sure there's like a batch of those that you've got in reserve so that you definitely have one for each month. And if there's a structure and the team have agreed and their line managers holding accountable, I think it's a team effort to get the testimonials. But then I also think, could you do it through social media? Could you reach out on social and do a post to say, have you had a good experience with us? Would you be able to give us a review or here on Facebook, or just type in the comments about your experience, or Google review, or if you get a new Google review or Facebook review, making a post about that and sharing that back out on your page and reusing stuff a lot. Yeah, lots of thoughts. It's not easy, and I relate.
Yeah, thank you. Really, some great insight there. And I said it when you were offline. I said it sort of reminds me of the topic when you spoke about social proofing. It kind of
Yes.
falls in that area, doesn't it? So I'm learning something today. So thank you. You know,
Oh,
I've never
I
heard
feel
that
like I
term.
get a gold star if I can teach you something, Joel. Cry.